most annoying things about being a streamer is not knowing whether or not you're actually going to grow your viewers. Like, all of this effort, all these freaking YouTube videos that you're watching, are you actually going to see any results from them? You spend hours on graphics and updating your stream and networking and everything else, and is this actually gonna freaking lead to anything? When is all of this going to happen? Or maybe you even completely change the content that you're streaming over and over and over again because you think that someday you'll stumble upon the magic change that will make your stream finally take off. Let me tell you, I did all of this because I thought that if I just put work into my stream, that would equal me growing it. But unfortunately, just because you invest a ton of time into your stream and you show up consistently doesn't mean that it's gonna go anywhere. But what does? What makes a stream grow? Why do some people blow up? Meanwhile, you and me are just sitting back here drinking our ginger colas. What the hell is that? Ginger colas means nothing. That's not even a thing. I mean, like, meanwhile, lots of people are struggling to catch up. I could have used a race. That analogy would have worked. What's up, everyone? It's Ashley. I've been a stream coach for 2.5 years, and what I like to do with my YouTube channel is just give you more options whenever it comes to growing your stream, and also a lot of emotional validation along the way, because there are a lot of emotional hurdles whenever it comes to being a streamer that I know intimately because I struggled for years to figure this out. I've been on the platform for 7 years, but it took me 4 years to figure out how to grow beyond 20 average viewers. So what I want to do with this video specifically is give you some really freaking fringe advice. This is definitely not going to be advice that works for everybody. However, if you're trying to come up with content ideas, or maybe you have an idea for a new YouTube channel or a new Twitch stream, or maybe you even want to switch games for your stream, how can you know whether or not that content is actually going to work? So this is something that I learned by studying entrepreneurship. I take a lot of things that I learned from digital entrepreneurs, very, very successful people, and I kind of look at it through the lens of Twitch streamers. And there's been a few things that I've been researching recently that I feel like could be super helpful for some of you. Not for all of you. Some of you are going to be like, yo girl, this is garbage. But some of you are going to really have the light bulb switched by this video. So let me shut up. I'm going to get started. If you have any questions, come chill with me in Discord, link below. So whenever it comes to deciding what kind of content you want to create, streamers can take a page out of the book of entrepreneurship and do something called market research, which is a sexy buzzword, as I do on this channel. And basically what market research means is that you look at the other people who are in the space that you want to be in, and you figure out what exists there, what doesn't exist there, how you can do it better. You analyze all of your strengths and your weaknesses and think about how you would fit into that space before you invest all of the time and energy and effort into putting yourself in that space. Now, I like to think of streamers as businesses, and so if I am building a business, the last thing that I want to do is build a business and create this product that nobody really needs or wants, right? Because whenever I do that, that means that I put a ton of money and effort and time into building a thing that ultimately is going to go nowhere. And so that's my philosophy with streaming. That's the way that I like to look at streaming. Not everyone likes to look at it that way, and it's perfectly valid if you'd rather look at it from the hobby perspective and not take it that seriously. But this is something that is going to give you another option if you get to that point where you're just hitting a brick wall and you need something new to try and help yourself out. So when you're building a business, there's a series of questions that you want to ask yourself in order to really figure out whether or not you should build that thing. The last thing that we want you to do is to waste your freaking time. So here are those questions. You can apply these to your stream or that content that you're thinking of making, and it might give you some insight into whether or not you should actually make it. So the first question that you want to ask yourself is, how urgently do people need this? Is this something that whenever I release it, people are going to be just absolutely tripping over themselves to become part of it? Or is it something that they're already getting 100 times over? Urgency drives your viewers to take action. So if they're going through something like, let's say, a pandemic, and you're a nurse who decides to start streaming and talking about the best ways that people can protect themselves from this disastrous virus, That's a little bit more urgent versus the 2000th Fortnite streamer. The next question that you want to ask yourself is, how many people need this? There's a rule in marketing or business, which is essentially that you are limited by the market that you participate inside of. And so if you are streaming a game that only 100 people are interested in watching, your maximum viewership number ever can only be up to 100 people, which sounds like a lot. I know most of you are small streamers, so that's gonna seem like awesome. If I could get to that level, that would be great. However, imagine that you do get to that level and that's as high as you can ever get. There's no more room for growth. There's no more room for improvement. So you want to consider, what is the absolute maximum number of people who are going to be interested in this for the amount of time that I'm going to be creating this content or this thing, and how is that going to affect the reach that I'm going to be able to have? You're just not going to be this gigantic monster streamer if you're playing a game that nobody watches. Another thing that you want to do is you want to think about the problem that people in that space are experiencing. What types of content do they already have a lot of? How many needs are already being fulfilled? What needs are not being fulfilled? And how can you fulfill those needs? What types of solutions can you give your viewers for these specific problems that they are experiencing? So in order to know your viewers' problems, you really have to know the audience that you're going after, or the audience that's in the niche or the market that you're trying to participate in. So I made this training, it's a masterclass training about how to figure out who your audience is. Definitely check that one out if you haven't already. I also talk a little bit more about this in my ebook. Now, if you're giving solutions for a problem, you also need to think about the pricing of the solutions. So this might be free pricing, that definitely should be a part of your business model. However, how much money are you going to need to run everything long term? That is something that you're going to want to be thinking about as well, which we're actually going to talk about here in a sec, so put a pin in this thought process for me. The next thing you want to ask yourself is, how easy is it to get a new viewer, and what do you have to do to get them? So in some game directories, the viewers are very loyal and dedicated to the top streamers, and they might not spread out very much. But in other directories, there's a much stronger sense of community, and so people are just kind of bouncing around between everybody. You need to know what kind of viewership expectations you can have before you just jump into a directory. And in terms of getting a viewer, how do you get them to your stream? Sure, they might just scroll through Twitch and click on you, and that's great. However, what other requirements, or not even requirements, but what other options are there for you to be able to attract more people to you? And what does that look like, and how do you fulfill that? A lot of people do this with giveaways. Some people do this through content diversification, so having a YouTube channel or having a Twitter account or social media. What are you going to do in order to attract more people to your stream? The next thing you want to ask yourself is, how much is it going to cost to run this stream? Running a stream is not free. Twitch doesn't make you pay, but you have to get equipment, you have to have internet, you have to have a room, or at least a part of a room, and quiet around you. Hopefully, in most cases. You know what? Microphones are getting crazy nowadays. Maybe not. Running your stream might also cost money in terms of design, graphics, moderation, video editors, any other people that you decide to bring in order to fulfill all of the processes that you want to happen for your community. So you want to think in terms of daily maintenance and daily just keeping, maintenance is the perfect word. How much is this going to cost me? Because it might be outside of your budget, it might be inside of your budget. You might have this massively lofty goal and then realize that, oh, this is actually going to take me $1,000 a month in order to do everything that I want to do. And so you might need to think of a scaled back solution to still use your idea, but maybe like a baby version of it. Next thing you want to think about is, how easy is it for your idea to be copied? Now, a lot of people have really great ideas. I'm gonna be honest, some of y'all blow my freaking mind with the ideas that you bring to me and the ideas that I've seen in the comment section below. Like, it is so awesome that a lot of y'all are so creative, and as creative as you are. However, you don't tend to move very quickly on a lot of the innovative ideas you actually have. Why is that? For a lot of you, it's because you overthink and you have analysis paralysis, and you just think that if you could figure out how to make it perfect, then eventually you could get it out there instead of you just getting it out there. I talk a lot more in depth about that in this video, so watch that if you haven't already. But the reason that a lot of y'all don't do this as well is because you see that someone else is kind of already doing the thing that you thought about. Oftentimes we view people who are doing the same thing that we want to do as competitors instead of collaborators, or better yet, validators of our idea. Think about how awesome it is that you don't have to be the first person that does a thing. You see someone who's successful already doing it, that means that it's possible. You don't have to go out there with this new idea and being totally unsure of whether or not it's actually going to work, right? It's already been validated, and so you know that that path exists. It's just a matter of you going after it if you actually want it for yourself too. Now, there's definitely something to be said of being a first mover to something. There is a massive advantage that comes with being the first, but just because you're the first doesn't necessarily mean that you're the best. Another thing you want to think about is how quickly you can start streaming. If you realize that your idea is super urgent and people need this literally right now, but you're procrastinating to the point where it's taking you weeks to finally start the stream or start the project and get it out there, you are missing your window of opportunity. And so it's really important that you stop procrastinating because you are afraid or you are overwhelmed or you're unsure of yourself, and instead you take that leap of faith into just creating the thing and getting it out there. Trust me, you will learn so much more from just creating it and getting it out there than you ever will from watching the hundreds of YouTube videos you are watching about it. Something that's really important about streaming is that you don't just stream, but you build a brand around yourself, and especially on multiple platforms. So having a presence on Twitter, which I've created an entire Twitter playlist for you, or even a presence on YouTube, and I have a YouTube playlist for you as well. The reason that this is so important is because some people will love your content and love you, but they just love consuming it somewhere else other than Twitch. And so you want to have a level of diversity just in case something happens to one of your platforms, you're protected, and also just because you want to satisfy as many people as you can. I regret that wording. So the question that you want to ask yourself here is, what other content can you create to support this idea? Is there a podcast that would work really well with your stream or whatever content idea you've come up with? Is there an Instagram account or a YouTube channel that would work really well in tandem together? And how are you going to fit all of that content into your schedule? Something that you need to think about with any business is not just the amount of time that it takes in order to get all the equipment and all of the graphics and set everything up and get ready to actually create the thing, but how much ongoing maintenance is the thing going to need in order for it to continue existing? Are you committing to 10 hours of work every single day? Is that going to fit into your schedule and the lifestyle that you want for yourself? Or is something like 2 hours a day way more comfortable? And how is that time that you are willing to dedicate going to affect the content that you want to create? So these questions aren't going to dictate whether or not your stream will grow. If you have great answers to all of these and everything seems promising, it still might not necessarily take off for one reason or another. However, if you go into your ideas with a little bit more research and a little bit more education, then you will have a lot higher chance of success. The reason that I love these questions is because they're business questions. Yeah, you can use them for your stream, but you can use them for any content that you create, any business venture in the future. For those of you who have been reaching out like, I want to create a product, but I don't know what to make, this is a really good place to start. Substitute all of the streaming language for product or service-based language, and you can get just as helpful information. And like I said, don't feel like you have to have answers to these questions or you have to do this research and at all in order for your stream to be valid. Just because you ask these questions doesn't mean that your stream is going to blow up, and just because you don't ask those questions doesn't mean that your stream is doomed. There are actually, I think probably every streamer in existence has not asked themselves these questions for the most part, but thinking a little bit deeper on it is very helpful helpful. And actually, these questions are why I was able to build a brand that took off the way that it did after struggling for as long as I did. So if you would like to learn a little bit more about how to break out of a plateau and you're struggling in that space right now, you can check out this video where I talk a little bit more about that, and I'll see you over there. Bye!